Okay. So, hi everyone, I'm Sarah. Growing up, I was never sure what I really wanted to do with my life. I thought about being a teacher, a veterinarian, or orthodontist, but I ended up going into nursing. Throughout high school and college, I did work at a water park and I babysat a lot, so I love kids, so being a pediatric nurse was a very easy decision for me. Not everyone knows what being a nurse entails, and the way that the media portrays nurses is not acceptable. So I'd like to go ahead and tell you a little bit about being a pediatric nurse, the role of actually being a nurse, the education requirements, and the emotional requirements to be a nurse. So first off, I'm going to start with the role of being a nurse. Not just with pediatric nursing, but with all nursing, we have to do assessments and charting on all of our patients. At my hospital, I can have up to 6 patients maximum at one time. So I have to chart on all those kids. And the rule is if you don't chart it, it hasn't been done. So charting is very important. With our assessments, we do head-to-toe assessments to make sure that we go in an organized manner. It's important so that we know what the baseline is of our patient to see if there's any change from the previous shift and if there's any change throughout our shift. And we do use stethoscopes. It's not just an accessory. We do use them to listen to lung sounds, heart sounds, and bowel sounds. We do administer medications. It's a very important part of our job. There are multiple rights to medication administration. You have to make sure it's the right patient, the right medication, the right dose, route, and time, that you document correctly on the medication. It's given for the correct reason, and the patient has the correct response to the medication. Let's see. Knowing normal and abnormal vital signs and conditions is also a very important part of nursing. And you also need to know the treatment for the different situations. I'll give you an example. This was actually a few months ago. I had a baby that came in with bronchiolitis. He was on oxygen, and all throughout the day and through my shift, he was just nonstop coughing. I ended up calling the physician. We changed his oxygen route of administration multiple times, and he ended up having to be sent to the PICU. He was actually in the PICU for a week on high-flow oxygen in order to stabilize his condition. That would be examples of when to notify the physician, knowing how to treat different conditions, and notifying the physician is a very big part of our job too. I work night shift, so it's a little intimidating having to wake the doctors up, but it's part of our job. Now that you know the roles of a nurse, I'd like to go into more detail about the education requirements. I did do 2 years of prereqs and then my 2 years of nursing school. So I have my associate's in science degree, and I'm going back for my bachelor's. After you complete your nursing school, you take the NCLEX in order to get your nursing license. And then there's different certifications that you need afterwards, such as your BLS, which is your basic life support, which involves chest compressions. ACLS, which is your advanced cardiovascular life support, which involves the chest compressions and medication administration. And then I have PALS, which is pediatric advanced life support, which involves the same thing just for pediatric patients. Next month, I'm actually doing a CPN course, which is a certified pediatric nurse course, so that I can get my certification for that. With general education, there's also emotional criteria that you need to know about that nurses deal with all the time. We deal with stressful situations such as rapid responses and codes and high acuity kids. But we do also deal with happy situations such as our kids being discharged, actually getting to know our patients and their families. During the holidays, at Halloween, we have our child life specialists that actually hand out costumes and let the kids trick-or-treat down the halls on different floors. And then for Christmas, we have donations of toys, and on Christmas Eve, we actually put out the gifts in the patient's room so that they think that Santa came. So it's actually a fun time too. So in conclusion, being a pediatric nurse is a very rewarding career, and if you meet all the criteria, it would be the perfect career for you. Okay.
Go ahead, Joey. I'll go after you.
Wait, I was hearing double of you.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was hearing like a replay of like what you were just saying. Did anybody else hear that?
No, I'm still hearing it.
You're still hearing hers?
Yeah, I'm not.
I don't want it to be like messed up.
I wasn't hearing double of you.
Yeah, I heard.
Double
Singular.
of you.
Everyone else was
And then I
too?
hear like a replay of what you were just saying right behind it. So like your whole entire speech was replayed like right back after it.
Oh, really?
I didn't want to interrupt you because I don't know if anybody else saw it or heard it either. I don't want it to be like messed up.
I wasn't hearing double of you.
Yeah, I heard.
Wow. Now, like now I'm hearing what we were just talking about.
Yeah, me too.
Replay of
Okay, well, we'll just move on, and I'll see if it is messed up when we're done, okay?
Okay, Joey, I'll go after you.
Oh, okay. At some point, every one of you guys in your lives have probably wanted to go to Disneyland. You know, when you're a little kid, you think, you know, it's the coolest place in the world, and when you grow up, you appreciate what Walt Disney did, you know, to make his dream come true. Today I'm going to give you information on Disneyland, the history, what goes on around the park, and finally some tips to make your visit to Disneyland more enjoyable. Using these 3 points, I'm going to inform you about the happiest place on Earth. Walt Disney first got the idea for his theme park when he was taking his daughters on a merry-go-round. He had an idea for a place where grown-ups and children can both have fun. It wasn't until a couple years later that he actually started, you know, thinking about it and getting his ideas down. Many people wanted to visit the Walt Disney Studios where he was working on animations, but he believed the studio itself had little to offer for guests. When the park was first, you know, materialized, he wanted it to be on an 8-acre piece of land right next to his studio to, you know, just have like a couple rides and things like that. But, you know, his ideas grew and he had to, you know, find a bigger place. He hired developers to start scouting for land. They finally settled on 160 acres of orange groves and walnut trees in Anaheim, California. He had a lot of trouble funding his project, even though he was a successful animator, and had to look for various methods to bring in more money. For example, he created a show called Disneyland where he showcased the upcoming park and various theme sections of the park. The park itself only took a year to open, and it was opened on July 17th, 1955. Now that I've given you background on the park, let's look at the park itself. Disneyland comprises of 4 major lands within the park: Adventureland, Frontierland, Fantasyland, and Tomorrowland. Walt Disney chose to use terminology usually associated with a theater. The visitors are referred to as guests. The employees of the park are called cast members. The term backstage refers to any area that is close to the guests. When working in their roles, the cast members have a strict script to follow and cannot say the words no or I don't know. Disney doesn't sell gum on location because of the possibility of litter. It also does not sell shelled peanuts for the same reason. According to PBS.com, the original price for admission was only $1 as opposed to now, which you might know is $100 or more. According to BusinessInsider.com, there's a secret club located in the park called Club 33, which is the only establishment in the park that serves alcohol. Now let's look at ways to ease your trip while at the park. There are a couple tips to make your trip easier because they apply to both Disneyland and Disney World's Magic Kingdom. For example, the ride Splash Mountain actually adjusts its water based on the time of year. So if you were to go during December, you wouldn't get as wet as opposed to being in the summer. Some lines in the park have the option to go left or right. According to Guff.com, you should veer to the left because most people are right-handed and will naturally go right. Disney has always been with the times, and they have a park app that can be used as a map or used to see how long a certain line is. In review, we looked at the making of the park itself, and some tips to make the day at Disneyland less stressful. It's easy to understand all the work that Walt Disney put into his project because people all around the world will know what it feels like to be in the happiest place on earth.
Do I go? So I'm sure many of you have felt the effects of stress in college. I certainly started to understand stress starting my freshman year of school. I started to wonder, how does one turn to a relaxed state of mind if stress seems to be an everyday part of college life? So this is why I want to share with you guys a few strategies that I've developed to help relieve stress. I developed these techniques on my own just from experience, and they've been really helpful for me and even my friends while living in college. So the first technique I want to share with you guys is having good time management skills. If you can remember some of these tips, I guarantee you it will help you. Always avoid procrastination if possible because it will catch up on you. So meaning plan effectively with whether that's your schoolwork or for tests, projects, dates, whatever. Take the time to study, of course, and always try to maintain a balance between your personal life and school. Meaning minimize party life during the week and save it for the weekends. You'll have more energy during the week to get things done as well as school. Also, a huge thing is maintain some supportive friendships with like-minded people. It really helps you keep accountable for your goals, whether that's with school or work. And remember to try to celebrate your accomplishments on the weekend, whether that's a good test score or scoring an internship or experience. Just remember to give yourself some credit or a pat on the back. All great time management skills. The second technique that has really helped me tremendously is maintaining a healthy lifestyle. I do this by treating my body right, keeping a healthy diet of wholesome foods as much as possible, avoiding drinks that you think are good for you, like Red Bull, but it's actually really horrible for you. And also keeping hydrated with water all day, getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Take naps if you have to. Even 20 minutes of napping helps your mind and body to recover to study. Exercising your body is also crucial as well. Take a walk, a run, swim, do whatever you like to do, maybe even yoga or meditation class, but keep your body moving, all contributing to a healthy mind and body. The third and final technique I have that really aids in keeping me calm is maintaining a positive mindset as best as I can. I know it's hard sometimes, but you have to force yourself, whether that's even staying in your normal environment and going outside your normal environment. That can be anything from going and sitting outside to regrouping or sitting under a tree in the park. Whatever works for you, do it. A lot of times reading a book or a magazine that has nothing to do with what you're studying also helps to let your mind wander. And sometimes you also have to change the way you think about things by using a positive mindset. This idea can just be simply being optimistic. I know it may sound cliche, but try to see the glass as half full. Sometimes find opportunities to laugh when you can, all tying into maintaining a positive mindset. And in conclusion, I hope you guys can take my tips and somehow use them in your own way. Maybe not the exact same way, but to help with relieve stress during your experience in school or high school or whatever it is.
Okay. Are you okay? Is this seat taken? I noticed you were sitting by yourself. Sorry, I'm gonna start over. Are you okay? Is this seat taken? I noticed you were sitting by yourself. Am I bothering you? I'm sorry I'm making you uncomfortable. These are the questions that I get asked on a daily basis by strangers and even some people that know me. To answer these questions, no. Yes, I'm okay. I just got lost in thought. No, this seat is not taken. I don't mind sitting by myself, but I do prefer it. No, you're not bothering me. I'm just not good with small talk, and it's okay. You're not making me uncomfortable. I'm just trying to figure you out first. Ever since I was a kid, and even now, I have always felt out of place because I've always been very quiet and reserved, and I always thought there was something wrong with me until I took a personality test called the Myers-Briggs test, and I discovered that there's a term for people like me. Introvert, and I discovered that I wasn't alone. To begin with, I'm going to inform you guys today about the reasons why introverts are misunderstood. First, being an extrovert is considered to be the norm in society, especially in the Western culture. Being bold, highly sociable, and overly confident is something that's idealized, according to an article on introverts. Introverts are the opposite of that. They're not bold, they're soft-spoken, they're not highly sociable, they're quiet and reserved, and most of them are confident but not overly confident. And because of that, they're considered to be outcasts, weird, and strange. And 25% of the population are introverts, which means that they're very common. So it shouldn't be that common for them to be misunderstood. Society needs to understand that the difference between extroverts and introverts is just the way that we think and the way that we can handle levels of social interaction. According to an article called Understanding the Introvert's Preference, introverts like to internalize, which means that they like to live inside their minds, and extroverts likes to externalize, which means that it's easy for them to express themselves and to talk to other people. Now that we understand why that being an extrovert is the norm, I can move on to the next point, which is that society designs and makes everything aimed towards introverts, and this makes introverts feel uncomfortable in most environments. Some examples are restaurants, malls, jobs, and schools. And I'm going to focus on schools because it's important that kids understand that it's not a bad thing to be different from a young age. Susan, a TED Talk called "The Power of the Introverts" by Susan Cain. She describes that schools make kids work in groups, come up with ideas, make decisions together, and they don't teach kids to work autonomously, which is something that's important for kids in real life. And when introverts are forced to work in that type of setting, it's very difficult for them, and it is a little bit unfair. So now that we see that introverts are misunderstood because society is a little bit unfair to them, I can now talk about why it's not just the fact that society doesn't understand introverts, it's also because they're not very good with communicating and speaking up for their rights. Introverts are not very good with communicating, so they won't tell you that they want change, that there's something wrong, and it's important for other people to take the time to talk to them, to make the effort to understand what is going on in their heads, because eventually an introvert will take down their walls and talk to you. And to conclude, I'd like to leave you guys with one thing. Next time you see someone that seems like they're an introvert, don't be afraid to start a conversation with them. Because we do enjoy deep conversations and even some small talks that may lead to conversations that are more in depth. And if we see that you take the time and effort to try to talk to us, we'll eventually take down our walls and we'll let you into a world full of ideas, stories, and very strong opinions. Thank you.
I guess I'll go. So today I'm going to talk about the Innocence Project. And at the end of my speech, I want you guys to understand the Innocence Project and how people can be wrongfully convicted through the criminal justice system. With advancements in DNA testing, the Innocence Project has been able to overturn many convictions. Imagine spending life in jail for a crime you never committed. According to the Innocence Project, since the first exoneration in 1989, there have been 342 exonerees, 156 exonerations in 25 different states from death row alone, and 26 of them being in Florida. So what exactly is the Innocence Project? It's a non-for-profit legal organization that is aimed at helping those who have been wrongfully convicted. The Innocence Project also aims at reforming the criminal justice system, and it helps individuals in which they have been, or the judicial system has failed them. So I was fascinated by this topic after watching a Netflix series called Making a Murderer, and I have done lots of research about the Innocence Project and its mission to free the wrongfully convicted. So the Innocence Project was founded by two people in 1992, Peter Newfield and Barry Scheck. Barry Scheck is a co-founder, co-director of the Innocence Project. He's currently a professor of law and has defended people in big cases like O.J. Simpson. And Peter Newfield is a nationally recognized civil rights lawyer who has spent over 35 years trying cases on behalf of victims of police misconduct and wrongful convictions. So what are the causes of false convictions? A lot of the times it's incentivized informants. So these people are testifying for false incentives. So they're getting paid to testify, or they're getting exchanged for a lesser prison sentence. A lot of the times they have testified in cases where they have evidence of guilt. And another one is inadequate defense. So a review of the convictions overturned by the DNA testing reveals that trial, a lot of the times lawyers were, in the worst cases, found sleeping in the courtroom during trial, disbarred shortly after finishing a death penalty case, failed to investigate alibis of people, failed to consult expert forensic witnesses. Another one is unvalidated or improper forensic science. So forensic science includes like bite mark comparisons, shoe print comparisons, hair, firearm tool analysis. And although there have been positive developments in DNA and forensic science in recent years, a lot of these cases have shown that forensic analysts sometimes testify without proper scientific basis. So sometimes they have lack of training, poor support, or insufficient resources, and also misconduct. Sometimes they fabricate test results or conceal test results that are favorable for defendants. There's also government misconduct, which includes misconduct by law enforcement officials. So sometimes they are lying or intentionally misleading jurors about observations. They're failing to turn over evidence, employing or suggesting false identification, and they provide incentives to secure unreliable evidence from informants. And another one is misconduct by prosecutors. So sometimes they withhold evidence from the defense. They're deliberately misleading or mistreating or destroying evidence, making misleading arguments, and sometimes pressuring defense witnesses not to testify. Also, false confession or admissions. So sometimes people have the threat of like a harsh sentence, or they have fear of violence, or misunderstanding of information, even ignorance of the law. And recording interrogations can also deter officers from using illegal or devious tactics to secure a confession from these people. And another one is eyewitness misidentification. So a lot of the times people change their description of a perpetrator or identification in a photo lineup. An example was a witness in a rape case that was shown a photo array from where they had a person and the police suspected was the perpetrator, and there was like an R mark marked next to the picture, and the rest were unmarked. So what does the Innocence Project do for the wrongfully convicted? So they help exonerate the wrongfully convicted. They use DNA evidence. The U.S. Senate recently passed Justice for All Reauthorization Act. So this allows for post-conviction DNA testing. It helps free people that are wrongfully convicted of crimes, and to help enforce laws that aid in prevention of witness misidentifications and DNA testing. So there have been many overturned convictions in the United States today just due to the hard work of the Innocence Project.
Sorry, I'm still getting that feedback. It's throwing me off a bit. When I was 11 years old, we went over to a friend's house after school, and we were just sitting around talking, not really doing much, and a friend went upstairs and came back down holding his dad's .357 Magnum, and he thought it would be funny to put it to his head and pull the trigger because his dad never had it loaded, and he shot and killed himself right there in front of all of us. Since that day, I have made it my goal to inform people about gun safety, the steps to prevent shootings like this in the household. Currently, I am a NRA qualified range officer, and I also led new security personnel in the weapons handling and safety area. With this speech, I hope to inform you on some of the numbers of these unfortunate shootings, the steps to prevent, and also the importance of teaching gun safety to our youth. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there are almost 12 deaths per 100,000 people just here in the state of Florida. And these are all due to accidental shootings within the household. Deaths involving children are almost 2,000 per year in Florida. Now, although these shootings have gone down over the years, that's still too many. So the steps to prevent these shootings is to always treat the weapon as if it's loaded, my friend thought that his dad didn't have it loaded because he never did before. And 2 days before that, he decided to go to the range and left it loaded. And the use of safes and gun locks are probably the major step into preventing these shootings. And to use a safe with children in the house, you don't want to use a stupid password like your birthday or their birthday or something that's easy for them to figure out. Gun locks are a great way. A lot of people like having their handguns loaded while they're in the house, but when children are involved, find a different way to protect your house. Install security systems, cameras, and unload your weapon and use a lock on it. The importance of teaching our youth about guns and how to safely handle them can prevent these shootings even more. I've been shooting since I was 6 years old, and my grandfather stressed the importance of safety before he even let me hold one. To this day, I still visit the range. I also help with classes for concealed carry. I also have taught classes to youth when I was living in Ohio. These kids aren't taught the dangers of guns. Everybody sees a gun and the first thing they want to do is pick it up, pull the trigger, and hear the boom, I guess. If a gun is present in the household, especially with children, you have to keep it locked away. To reiterate, always lock your guns up, use safes, gun locks, and in the future, if you have children in the household with a gun, teach them that it's not a toy.
Wow. So are we done?
Yep, I'll send it to you guys later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're the
Thank you.
best.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.